The wedding night had barely passed when the mine I worked in collapsed. Everyone thought I was buried alive, and the insurance company paid my wife a fortune. 3 days later, I crawled out of the mine on my own. When I found her, she was worried about the compensation being reclaimed and asked me to disappear for a few years. She also promised to take care of my parents and my siblings. 3 years later, I returned from the Baja California Peninsula, leave as real, where I had been working hard, only to find that she had remarried and had a son and a daughter. I parked my Lamborghini and brought carefully prepared gifts to attend my father-in-law's 70th birthday celebration. I wanted to surprise my wife and family, but the cruel reality hit me hard. My wife had remarried and had 2 children with her current husband. They were playing and making noise around their grandparents, a picture of family harmony. Even my mom and dad were taking care of them. "Jack, you're back?" Emily covered her mouth, looking at me in shock as I stood at the door. For 3 years, I had been living a dangerous life in the Baja California Peninsula, leave as real, to earn money. I didn't dare to go back or call, afraid of raising suspicion. But I never expected this outcome. If I never came back, would you just pretend I didn't exist? I watched her kiss her current husband's face, acting coy in front of him. I remembered how she used to say I was too dirty from digging in the mine every day. My hands were covered in calluses, and she didn't even want to hold them. It turned out she just didn't love me and was embarrassed to be seen with me in public. "Don't talk nonsense, I didn't." Emily looked flustered, avoiding eye contact. She knew very well what her achievements were based on. The people at the party were whispering, shocked by my appearance. "Is that Miss Emily's ex-husband? Wasn't he said to have died in the mine collapse 3 years ago? How could he be her?" A lot of people died in that mine collapse, I remember. "Yeah, is this some kind of ghost sighting in broad daylight?" Besides Emily, only my family knew I was still alive. But they never mentioned looking for me, and they didn't even offer a word of concern when they saw me. My father-in-law frowned, displeased with my actions. "Jack, what do you mean by showing up now? Are you deliberately trying to cause trouble?" My dad chimed in, "Yeah, Jack, you should leave now. We can talk after the in-laws finish the birthday party." In 3 years, I didn't know what benefits Emily had given them. They were helping outsiders to drive away their own son. But I had always been destined for hard work. I took care of my brother, and I took care of my sister, and I didn't even have the chance to go to school. I had to give it to them and go out to work and earn money early. Every penny I earned was hard-earned, but no one cared about me. Even my brother's eyes were filled with anger when he looked at me. "Jack, Emily has been very good to us. Besides, you haven't been back for 3 years. Isn't it normal for her to remarry? Even having children is understandable." My sister sized up my clothes from head to toe. White t-shirts, jeans, and sandals are still as unfashionable as before. She immediately took Emily's arm and advised, "Jack, Emily has worked so hard these years. You shouldn't blame her." My heart felt like it was being clenched tightly. There was too much bitterness I couldn't express, so I could only try to calm myself down. Emily smiled coldly at me, confident that she had the upper hand. "Jack, go back first. I'll explain to you after the party." Is there even a need to explain? I looked calmly at the woman I once loved deeply. She had changed, and even the last trace of tenderness towards me was gone. "Alex and I are innocent. The children were an accident, but since they were born, I have to take responsibility. Besides, when they grow up, they can be adopted by you, and wouldn't it be nice for them to call you Dad?" The word adopted made me want to laugh. How could she say these things so brazenly? And then what? I'll be responsible for raising them, and watch you be sweet with other men? "Jack, don't go too far." Emily frowned, and I sighed sincerely. I made up my mind and said, since we can't make it work, let's get a divorce. As soon as I mentioned divorce, Emily suddenly became nervous. The main reason was that she had remarried her current husband before we were divorced. Strictly speaking, it was bigamy, and if my faked death was revealed, reclaiming the compensation would be a minor issue. She was afraid of being sued by the insurance company. She would lose her reputation and go to jail. Jack, let's not make a fuss, okay? I've been taking care of everything at home these past few years while you were gone. I'm really tired. Emily is right. Why can't you be more understanding? Facing my dad's complaint, I laughed. But the smile was a bit bitter, with a hint of self-deprecation. This was her promise to me back then. She was afraid of being poor, and suddenly, she received compensation from the insurance company and the mining company. $2 million was more than I could earn in 20 years of non-stop work. As long as I didn't show up, she would never find another man for the rest of her life. She would also take good care of my parents and siblings. I left 3 years ago, and her son with another man was already over 3 years old, which meant she had cheated on me during our marriage. Did she take me for a fool? Jack, you can't be so selfish. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices for the sake of this family. Lisa kept winking at me, hoping I would calm down. Just as I was about to speak, my mom pulled me aside. Son, you're the oldest. Do you want to watch your siblings go back to their previous life? Listen to me, don't get a divorce. Those 2 children will take care of you in your old age. Were these words coming from my own mom? Even though I had always been unloved as a child. When I grew up and the family didn't have money to pay for tuition, I had to work hard in the mine to earn tuition for my siblings. I accepted it, always feeling that it was my duty as the oldest. Now, I had to endure humiliation and continue to live with my cheating ex-wife. It was simply absurd. Are you just doing it for the money in her hands? Can't you live a good life without money? My mom suddenly slapped me and scolded. You unfilial son, do you have to make me angry to be happy? She clutched her chest, gasping for breath. I knew she was faking it. She would do this every time we argued. I was used to it and still went my own way, saying, I'm determined to get this divorce. You're not allowed to divorce. If you dare to divorce, I'll break off all relations with you, you unfilial son. My dad pointed at me and roared. And my siblings looked at me as if I were a disgusting maggot. They had completely forgotten all the good I had done for them. Emily didn't want to make a scene, so she restrained her temper and explained, Jack, I can adopt the children to you now. And I'll compensate you for all these years I owe you. How much money do you want? I smiled, turned around, and left gracefully. Just as I left the hotel, I received a phone call from Mr. Johnson, asking if my return to the country went smoothly. He was my benefactor, one of the big bosses in the Baja California Peninsula, leave as is real. My current achievements and wealth were all brought to me by him. Learning of my situation, he immediately took a private plane that night to support me. That night, I don't know how Emily found my contact information. She called me and asked me to go home and explain things in person. I have already asked Mr. Johnson to investigate this in advance. Afterwards, all the results were pretty much as I had guessed. While I was working as a miner, working hard day and night to earn money, this bitch was already hooking up with that guy named David behind my back. She also used my compensation money to travel around the country. Her total assets had reached hundreds of millions, and she was doing well in the local area. Jack, listen to Mr. Johnson. It's better to get rid of this kind of woman as soon as possible, but you can't let her off too easily before the divorce. I understood what Mr. Johnson was saying, and I had seen it through when I left the hotel. When I arrived at the mansion, I saw Emily's 2 children playing in the yard. The little boy stopped suddenly when he saw me and shouted at me, "You bad uncle, how dare you come to my house? Get out! Get out!" He tried to chase me away, full of hostility. On the other hand, the little girl cried, scaring the others, who quickly came out to check. When they saw it was me, my dad cursed angrily, "You good for nothing, how dare you show your face here? Get out! I don't have a son like you." My mom and siblings also came out of the mansion. Seeing that they were all living here, I suddenly understood why they were treating me like this. Emily probably gave them too much. So much that they couldn't refuse, so much that they could disregard family affection. Jack, do you think you can undo what you did at the birthday party by apologizing now? Even if Emily agrees, I won't. As soon as my sister finished speaking, my brother mocked, "I think he probably came here to ask for money. Outsiders may not understand me, but don't you understand me either?" Family affection suddenly became ridiculous in my eyes. I'm not interested in money anymore. I'm here to have her sign this. I opened the file folder in my hand and took out the divorce agreement. Seeing this, Emily immediately said anxiously, "Jack, do you have to be so ruthless? Which one of us is more ruthless?" I looked at the woman I once loved deeply with a sneer. I laughed at myself for thinking abo. You see her every day these years, and I laughed at how pathetic my vision was. David suddenly stepped forward and asked, "Say it, how much money will you take to leave us alone?" Besides Emily, he was the most paw-jacked one. I knew this guy was definitely up to no good with Emily. As long as I defended my rights, their marital status would not be protected by law. In the end, they might end up losing both money and people. I said, "I'm not interested in money, and I don't want to do anything to you. Just follow the normal legal procedures." These words made Emily roar on the spot, "Jack, you're forcing me." Her 2 children were also pushing me, trying to push me out of here. The older brother shouted, "You bad guy, don't bully my mom and dad." David secretly called the security room. Not long after, 2 tall and strong security guards came after hearing the news. One of them was David's cousin, who David had gotten in through connections to be a deputy captain. Seeing me, he didn't say a word and kicked me. As I dodged, I saw him suddenly take out a fruit knife from his sleeve. "You dare to mess with my brother and my sister-in-law? I'll kill you now." I couldn't dodge in time, so I could only grab it with my hand. The blade immediately cut a gash in my palm, and blood flowed freely. I didn't care too much and grabbed Tom and threw him to the ground. After spending 3 years in the Baja California Peninsula, leave as real, it was my ruthlessness that Mr. Johnson noticed. He had me guarding his place, and eventually, we cooperated to open clubs and hotels. Another security guard rushed up and was also kicked over by me. Emily and the others were frightened by my actions. Her dad roared at me, "Jack, you're lawless. You dare to hit someone. So, I deserve to be stabbed to death by him?" I looked calmly at my father-in-law, with no respect left in my heart. "What's with your attitude? Is there anything wrong with what the in-laws said? If you didn't cause trouble." First, would David's brother have attacked? He's acting in self-defense. If the police come, you'll be at fault. It was hard to imagine that these words were spoken by my own dad. Even though I knew he didn't like me since I was a child and only doted on my siblings. I never thought that someone would try to kill me, but instead, I would be scolded by him. Emily didn't even bother to pretend anymore, staring at me indifferently. She was also a little annoyed that she hadn't stabbed me to death. Maybe if I died, she wouldn't have to live in fear anymore. "Hurry up and apologize to your sister-in-law." David's brother was also protecting them out of kindness. "You should be more tolerant." My sister called him David brother, more affectionately than she called me. "Okay, then let's go through legal procedures and see who's more reasonable." They say 100 days of kindness between husband and wife, and I didn't want to make things too ugly. But facing the aggressive situation, I couldn't bear it anymore. Emily said to me, "Jack, what you're doing is not good for anyone. It's not necessary. I know you still love me. Can't you make some sacrifices for me?" Ha, haven't I sacrificed enough? For the sake of her having a better life, I took the initiative to disappear for 3 years. Like disappearing from the face of the earth, I escaped to the Baja California Peninsula, leave as is real, and lived a life of hell. Every day, I was worried, afraid that a rival would suddenly appear and shoot me. I said, "I'm not unwilling to compensate you. David is sick, terminally ill. Can't you wait for me to accompany him through his last journey before I accompany you?" I glanced at David, who had a rosy complexion and a well-proportioned figure. No matter how I looked at him, he didn't look like he had a terminal illness. Was she stupid, or was I just that easy to fool? Insurance fraud, bigamy, and your shady business dealings, all added up. I wonder if you'll be ruined. W.H. And I said, frightened Emily, and her expression changed drastically. "What good will it do you to do this?" "No good. I just want to get back everything I've lost these years." As soon as I finished speaking, I heard someone behind me shout, "It's this kid, get him." Tom had secretly called 7 or 8 punks over. Each of them was holding a blunt weapon and approaching me quickly. "Jack, if you apologize to Emily and David now, there's still room for maneuvering in this matter." My dad reminded me in a commanding tone. My mom, brother, and sister were also trying to persuade me not to be too impulsive. If they cared about me, I would listen to them. But I knew very well that they were just worried that if I really fell out with Emily, everything they had now would become a bubble. Seeing that the thugs were about to attack, Mr. Johnson also rushed over with a group of his men. Mr. Johnson brought over a group of his most loyal men from the Baja California Peninsula, leave as is real. These were all ruthless people, some of whom would risk their lives for money. As long as they were paid enough, they would dare to kill people directly. And the violent aura on their bodies scared the thugs that Tom had called over. They all stood there, not daring to move. Mr. Johnson walked out of the crowd, patted me on the shoulder, and said, "Jack, am I here in time?" On the other hand, Emily suddenly questioned, "Jack, have you been hanging out with these thugs for the past 3 years that you disappeared? I thought you would at least try to make a name for yourself or at least find a job. You're too disappointing." My in-laws looked at me as if they were looking at maggots. My brother and sister also regarded me as a hooligan. My dad didn't even want to recognize me as his son anymore, wanting to completely cut ties with me. It didn't matter, I had already given up on them. Mr. Johnson was naturally protective and couldn't stand seeing the people around him being wrong. Edition. Like a smiling tiger, he asked with a smile, "Who is David?" David was about to speak, but Emily secretly stopped him. She shook her head, her eyes filled with worry. I took all of this in and felt endless sadness in my heart. In 10 years of relationship, I had never felt this kind of look. It was the care I had longed for before, but now it only made me feel ridiculous. David smiled fearlessly. "It doesn't matter, this is our territory, he wouldn't dare to do anything to me." After speaking, he looked down at Mr. Johnson. "That's me. Sure enough, a gigolo. No wonder he was taken in by that promiscuous woman." Everyone knew who Mr. Johnson was talking about. Even though he didn't say it explicitly, Emily's expression had already changed. She never thought that my mother would suddenly say angrily, "Our Emily is not a promiscuous woman, they are in love." Emily looked at her mom in disbelief. Mr. Johnson was amused and asked my mother-in-law, "I don't seem to have said who that promiscuous woman is, right?" This kind of self-confession was stupid in anyone's eyes. If I didn't know my mother's personality was like this, Emily even suspected that I had bought off her mom a long time ago. I'm warning you, this is not a place that any Tom, Dick, or Harry can enter. The police should be here soon. Before they come, as long as you kneel and beg me, I'm willing to give you a chance. David knew my background. He used to be a miner, and after the collapse, he crawled out and completely lost his job. Even if he disappeared for 3 years, it was impossible for him to make a name for himself. Are you sure? I asked David calmly. My voice was mixed with sarcasm, but unfortunately, he didn't hear it. For the sake of Emily and the children, I can't let you continue to make trouble in my house. Your house. Well, that's right. After all, you're already married. I looked at the mansion in front of me in a daze. This used to be the outskirts, with 2 rows of bungalows built by the villagers themselves. It was out of sync with the midtown prosperity. Now that they have all been demolished, Emily has bought the land here and spent money to build a 3-story luxury mansion. The house was still my house, but the person was no longer mine. Do you want an arm or a leg? I asked. What? David frowned and stared at me in confusion. Just as he was about to speak, I shook my head and said, "Forget it, I'll choose for you. It's enough to leave 2 legs and 1 arm." David guessed what I was going to do, but he just didn't believe it. I didn't plan to make him believe it either and turned to nod at Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson raised his right hand and waved his index finger forward. 2 burly, middle-aged men immediately stepped forward and easily pressed David to the ground. Another person took out a cleaver directly from his arms. David finally realized that I wasn't joking, and his entire face was distorted. "Emily, save me, save me, he's going to do it." Emily and my parents didn't believe I would do this at all. They knew that I had always been a very sullen person. I didn't like to talk, but I didn't dare to cause trouble. I was a law-abiding citizen. "Jack, do you think such a low-level threat will make me surrender to you?" "Don't dream." Before Emily could finish her words, a scream suddenly resounded throughout the scene. Mr. Johnson's men dropped the knife and chopped off David's right arm. The bloody scene terrifies Emily, and the others were all frightened, not even daring to fart. This is the price you pay for bullying, Jack. Be honest and sign the divorce agreement and compensate what you should. If there's a next time, it won't be as simple as an arm. Mr. Johnson's voice was very deterrent. Emily and the others didn't dare to speak, but their eyes were full of anger. "Jack, what you're doing is illegal. You've changed too much in these 3 years." Facing Emily's accusation, I smiled and said, "I have a who dread ways to kill you, so don't force me anymore." I looked at my parents and my trembling siblings again. There was no longer any emotion in my eyes. It was as if I was looking at 4 strangers, and then they turned around and left without looking back. Emily roared at me, "Jack, you've been corrupted by this group of hooligans. If you don't turn back, your life will be over." These words sounded like they were for my good. But was she that kind? She was just afraid that after I left, I would reveal the insurance fraud incident from 3 years ago. Plus, there was bigamy and the company's improper business practices. It was hard to say who would be in jail longer now. After I left, Mr. Johnson sent all the evidence he had investigated to my phone. "What I gave you is enough to ruin her. It's up to you whether you want to use it or not." I was very grateful that Mr. Johnson could come all the way to support me. Looking at the evidence in the phone, I replied, "Toms, after this is resolved, I've decided to settle down in the Baja California Peninsula, leave as is real." "Really? That's great, then I'll wait for your good news." Mr. Johnson patted me on the shoulder, got in the car, and left. But he also left me a Rolls-Royce, saying that he bought it 2 years ago and hadn't driven it much. I could drive it, sell it, or give it away. I knew that this was also what he used to support me, so I accepted it. On the other hand, when Emily sent David to the hospital, her parents were furious. They said they would make me pay the price no matter what. And my parents were busy like servants at the moment, afraid that the high monthly living expenses would be gone and they would be kicked out of the mansion. He's just a poor boy. Why is he treating us like this? No, I can't swallow this. After my mother-in-law complained, my father-in-law continued, that little beast hasn't been seen for 3 years, he's lawless. If we continue to let him do this, what will happen? Emily was also a little puzzled. I used to look like an honest person. I didn't say anything, and I kept all my grievances to myself. How could I suddenly become like this? Doctor, my husband has cancer, lung cancer. Please be careful when you perform the surgery. When she arrived at the hospital, Emily explained everything. Until the physical examination was completed, the doctor frowned at the test report. He also found Emily and handed over the results. After several tests, we did not find cancer in your husband's body. Emily widened her beautiful eyes and exclaimed, "Impossible, he was diagnosed." She had seen the report many times, and it was printed on it. David had lung cancer, and it was in the terminal stage. That's why she listened to him in everything and was even willing to continue raising the 2 children after he died. However, the results showed that David's body did not have cancer at all. Could it be that there was a problem with the machine that checked his body? Facing Emily's question, the doctor was a little angry. Are you questioning our hospital's ability? Looking at David being pushed into the operating room, Emily's face gradually turned cold. She realized that she had been deceived, and she hated being betrayed the most. The surgery was successful, but Emily didn't bother to see David. She was always trying to destroy the previous false accounts in the company, not allowing any accidents to happen. She thought she was very smart, but she didn't know that I already had the evidence. 3 days later, I still hadn't gotten Emily's signature of consent, and I also defaulted that she had officially rejected my proposal. From the results of their family's discussion, I didn't have the funds to fight this lawsuit at all. In the end, it was a big deal to spend more money to buy peace, then find a way to send me in. That day, Emily asked me to meet at the mansion to discuss the divorce and compensation. I knew it was a trap, but I still decided to participate. However, before I went, I drove Mr. Johnson's Cullinan, which is worth tens of millions. As soon as I arrived at the mansion, I honked the horn. Tom knew that Emily was going to negotiate with me, so he had prepared to humiliate me in advance. Until he saw the car I was driving, the words he was about to say were swallowed back. He had seen countless cars. How could he not know the value of the Cullinan? But he couldn't figure out where I got the money. When I drove the car in, the expressions of Emily and her family, who were waiting at the door in advance, looked quite wonderful. I got out of the car and said calmly, "What do you want to talk about? Just say it here." This car. Emily stared at the Cullinan I was driving, which looked incredible. She was now worth hundreds of millions, but she only drove a Bentley worth 3 million. Is this car very expensive? Mom frowned and asked. The servant explained, "I've seen this car on the internet, it's probably worth tens of millions." What? A car worth tens of millions? Mom was shocked at first, then mocked. Did you rent it? The rent for 1 day is not cheap. Just to show off? Well, 5,000 a day, it's quite expensive. My casual answer made Emily take back her curiosity. With a cold face, she asked me, "Jack, you incited others to kill David unsuccessfully, and you also gathered a crowd to fight. Do you admit these? And then? As long as you don't divorce me, there will still be a set of rooms for you in this house in the future. Let's just pretend that we don't owe each other." What a good way to pretend that we don't owe each other. I nodded and said to her calmly, "Since you think so, then we'll see you in court." I was too lazy to even enter the mansion, and left in the car after finishing speaking at the door. Emily was so angry that she trembled and roared at me, "Jack, you better not regret it." The next day, Emily received a summons from the court. She sat on the sofa with a pale face, never expecting that I would sue her. Emily's father picked up his teacup and said dismissively, "We've hired the best lawyers in Midtown. What are we afraid of from a poor kid like him?" "It's not that I'm afraid," Emily said. "I'm worried he'll fight to the death." Emily knew that even a cornered dog would jump a wall. She was worried that if I lost the case, I would do something rash that wouldn't be worth it. On the day of the trial, I arrived at the courthouse. Because it was a public hearing, there were quite a few people present. There were also many local media reporters waiting to get the latest scoop. After all, Ms. Emily was a well-known local businesswoman. Accompanying her was the best legal team in the area. This time, she was confident of victory and hadn't considered the possibility of losing. But when my legal team appeared, it caused a huge stir. "Isn't that Jessica Leong? And Tim Chi? Oh my God, those are the most famous legal power couple in the country. How did they appear together? Seeing one of them would have been a miracle, but seeing both of them today?" Hearing the surrounding discussions, Emily suddenly turned pale. She never imagined that I would be able to hire the top lawyers in the country. And two of them, at that. It wasn't that she hadn't thought about it before, but she had a little self-awareness and didn't dare to ask. As for the outcome, there was no doubt. Emily was ordered to pay a fine of $20 million, and the company was shut down for rectification. Leaving aside the fine, the company's shutdown was enough to give her a headache. If she wasn't careful, it would break the chain of funding. After the court hearing, Emily asked to meet me alone. She threatened that if I dared to divorce her, she would cut off all means of survival for my parents. Throw them out and never care about them again. I laughed and replied, "Do whatever you want, it has nothing to do with me." Emily frowned slig. HTLY. "If you dare to play like this, be careful you don't end up losing everything." Threatening me? I took out my phone and opened the saved file folder. Inside were all the false accounts of Sunset Group, as well as a series of evidence of tax evasion. Every transaction was recorded in detail, and reporting it would be a sure thing. How did you get these records?" "Impossible. You dared to investigate Sunset Group? What makes you think I wouldn't dare? Let's see who dies more miserably in the end." I put away my phone and left. Emily was left slumped on the ground, gasping for fresh air. She was also gagging nonstop due to extreme fear. Emily returned home in a daze, locking the door and refusing to see anyone. Even after her parents tried to persuade her for a long time, she still wouldn't open the door. Her eldest son and younger sister were also brought by their grandparents, and they knocked on the door wanting to ask their mom to go out and play. Emily, who was usually gentle and considerate, suddenly shouted, "Get out, all of you get out." The two children were so scared that they burst into tears. Emily became more and more annoyed and complained to her mother, "Who told you to bring them here? Take them away quickly." Now, she was very flustered, afraid that I would reveal the evidence at any time. At that time, not only would the entire Sunset Group go bankrupt, but she herself might also go to jail. This was not the outcome she wanted. She picked up her phone and called me again, asking, "If I agree to a peaceful divorce, will you let me go? If you had agreed on the day of father-in-law's 70th birthday celebration, I might have let you go, but now, it's too late." Seeing that I had hung up the phone, Emily was furious. She screamed and smashed the phone on the spot. Then, she went to the backyard and shouted at Lisa, who was enjoying the afternoon sun, "You're not welcome here. Get out immediately." "Emily, what's wrong?" Lisa took off her sunglasses and looked at Emily in confusion. Since Jack is going to push us to the end, don't blame me for turning against you first. Emily, he is he, we are us, you will always be my Emily, how can you drive us away? Her mom happened to come over, intending to borrow money from Emily, but she held back her words. She quickly stepped forward and begged, Emily, you can't drive us away, otherwise we'll have to sleep on the streets. I don't care where you sleep, give you half an hour to pack your bags and get out. Seeing Emily turn hostile, her mother suddenly cursed, you little bitch, you only got where you are today because of my son's compensation money. I've supported you for 3 years, you've eaten, drank, and lived for free, and I've given you money to spend, it's already been paid off. That's bullshit, you'll never pay it off in this lifetime. Her mother roared, her eyes bloodshot. She reached out and grabbed Emily's neck, and the two quickly started fighting. Lisa, quickly, hold this little bitch down for me. Faced with her mother's request, Lisa hesitated for a few seconds and then suddenly kicked her mother away. She helped Emily up, dusted her off, and said with concern, Emily, are you okay? My mom might be having a mental breakdown. You unfilial daughter, I raised you for nothing. I haven't even worn a new piece of clothing since I was little. If it weren't for Emily these past few years, would we be where we are now? You. Her mother was so angry that her chest hurt, but Lisa smiled dismissively, fake it, keep faking it. It wasn't until she fainted that they realized something was wrong. They immediately called an ambulance and sent her to the hospital for emergency treatment. In addition to Lisa, her father and brother were also kicked out of the house. Lisa, who thought she could continue to enjoy wealth and luxury, received news a few days later. Sunset Group went bankrupt due to tax evasion, poor management, and various scandals. All the mansions and luxury cars in the house were forcibly auctioned off. The sense of loss in her heart was very heavy, and she was also unwelcome by her family. Emily didn't expect me to be so ruthless. She also found out that the Cullinan was mine, as well as the assets worth billions in the Baja California peninsula. Deep down, she felt a strong sense of regret. She regretted trusting David and abandoning me completely for her selfish desires. Unfortunately, there is never any regret in medicine in this world. The once glamorous family was now a rat crossing the street, hated by everyone. They began to live a life of hiding. Her father-in-law and mother-in-law were unable to withstand the blow and were both seriously ill in the hospital. Her son and sister are now also being taken care of by David's parents. Crying and making a fuss every day. Kicking the responsibility back and forth like a ball to her in-laws. Emily called me countless times in between, begging me to give her another chance. Begging me to forgive her and saying that she would never dare to do it again. Little did she know that I had already married in the Baja California peninsula, and my wife was more than 3 months pregnant. Emily cried her eyes out and begged me bitterly. She also said that she was willing to take my parents and siblings back and would do her best to take care of them even if it meant scrimping and saving. I replied with a cold smile, sorry, I broke off relations with them a long time ago. Then I hung up the phone and enjoyed a truly happy life. Half a year later, I learned from Mr. Johnson that Emily's parents had died of serious illnesses. Her 2 children drowned in the river because their grandparents didn't keep an eye on them. Emily couldn't bear the blow and finally chose to jump off a building and commit suicide. As for my dad, mom, and siblings, they returned to living a poor life. For them, these 3 years were like a dream. When the dream ended, everything went back to the way it was. I pressed my face against my wife's belly and gently stroked it with my hand. I finally understood that this kind of life was what I truly wanted.